Am I the asshole for ditching my mentally ill friend at a gas station? So around this time last year, me and a group of 3 friends had spent 6 months planning a road trip across the country, and we had just left. Of the 4 of us, 3 were having a great time. One of our friends is very irritable, and says she has depression, anxiety, PTSD and borderline personality disorder despite having never gone to a therapist or psychiatrist. She thinks psychiatry and therapy are shams. Initially, we didn't want to invite her, but she tends to get very upset when she gets left out. Before we left, we explained to her that we were not going to spend 3 weeks putting up with her outbursts and she needed to control them so we could all have fun. She made a fuss about it but eventually agreed. 2 days in and a few hundred miles from home, we had all come close to losing our minds. Our one friend was nitpicking and yelling at everyone for everything, from the clothes we wore out in public because we were embarrassing her, eating or drinking water too loudly, all the way down to 2 different conversations going on at the same time because it was too much noise for her. She was the only one on the O and refused to let anyone else have a turn. Would smoke cigarettes in the RV no matter how many times I told her to wait until we pulled over, etc. I told her she needed to keep her promise that she wouldn't be a pain so that we could just have fun, but she kept insisting that she wasn't being rude and kept bringing up her self-diagnosed mental illnesses. The 2 other friends and I decided we were sick of it, so we stopped at a gas station and when she went inside to buy more cigarettes, we sped off. I cash-apped her $220 so she could get a hotel and maybe an Uber back home and then blocked her. She blew up my friends' phones with threats and insults until we all blocked her and enjoyed the rest of the trip. Her mom ended up driving to her and bringing her back home after she stayed the night at a hotel. The reason I might be the asshole is because she said if we had warned her she would be ditched if she didn't calm down, she would have acted better. At the same time though, if extortion could have brought decency out of her then she was capable of it all along, right? Am I the asshole? Edit. My bad, I forgot to specify. I was 17 at the time, she was 21, and my other 2 friends are 20 and 22. Edit 2. The gas station we dropped her off at was in Florence, Arizona at around 1 p.m. It was on a street with a grocery store and 2 motels. Edit 3. I forgot to mention, my 22-year-old friend, owner of the RV, had told her we were going to drop her off back at home, but she said she'd start breaking things if we headed back home, so we made a plan to ditch her.
Not the asshole, although verging on everyone sucks here because of. We explained to her that we were not going to spend 3 weeks putting up with her outbursts and she needed to control them so we could all have fun. She made a fuss about it but eventually agreed. What did you think was going to happen? It's pretty much your own fault.
Not the asshole. Only because you sent her money so she wasn't completely stranded. But why would you ever agree to let someone like that travel with you? The outcome was predictable.
She sucks for nitpicking everything and using mental illness as an excuse and not seeking necessary help if she truly does have mental illnesses. You and your friends suck for abandoning her in an unfamiliar place without any warnings or information of how to get to a familiar location so that she can get somewhere safe.
Jesus fucking Christ. You shouldn't fucking abandon the mentally ill person you know that is on the trip, but you also shouldn't have let her go with you in the first place. She needs to get an official diagnosis, some meds, and some therapy. You gave in to the demands of an unstable person, took them partially on a trip, then dropped them off in a strange, unsafe space a couple hundred miles away. You should have fucking held your ground in the first place. WTF.
Everyone sucks here, but you suck more. You just dropped her at a gas station. That is severely fucked up, especially for someone who you know has issues with being left out of things. It's so much worse to invite her to join you and then leave her at a gas station and block her than it would have been to not invite her at all. Obviously she was shitty. Mental illness doesn't excuse being a dick coming from a mentally ill person, but I'm sure there was a better way to deal with this. Yeah, you were wrong for just abandoning her hundreds of miles from home. You should have at least tried to have a talk with her and tell her either she stops acting like that or she can get out at the next stop. She's the asshole for acting like that when y'all had already told her you didn't want to deal with her crappy attitude. I also feel like you should have known she'd act like that. You said that she threw a fit when you were telling her the conditions for the trip. The fact that she was complaining about that before y'all left should have been a huge red flag that she wasn't going to listen. Edit, OMG 500 upvotes. This is a first time I got over 20, thanks guys.
You are the asshole. How is this even a question?
Info, was the gas station safe? You are the asshole, you don't just ditch people in places far from home. In the end you invited her and she was part of the group. You guys should have talked it out like adults and got her a cab or something instead of just cash-apping and blocking her, which only makes you guys look just as petty if not more. If something happened to her you guys would have been the only people who knows where she was.
Everyone sucks here. It sounds pretty dangerous to just leave someone at a gas station with no warning like that.
You are the asshole. You don't abandon people at rest stops or convenience stores. It doesn't matter if you put money in her account. She did not know where she was or how to cope there. You could have called her mother. You could have had the gumption to tell her she wasn't invited on the trip. Full stop, or B, tell her that you weren't taking her any further and you all would wait for her mother or an Uber. But leaving her? While she is in the store? How in the hell can you imagine that is ethical? You are the asshole. I'm sorry, but you are. I totally sympathize with you and you were in the right up until you sped away. I guess telling her to her face was impossible. Very cowardly of you.
You were 17. Does that mean you left your 17-year-old mentally unstable friend in an unfamiliar and potentially dangerous situation because she was annoying? You're an asshole. You never should have invited her if you knew for a possibility she was going to act that way. I'm not saying you were wrong to want her there, but once you had her on the trip it was ridiculously irresponsible of you to abandon her, even with the money. She's also clearly an asshole for all the reasons you've stated.
Whoa, okay, this is super uncool. You don't ditch anyone at the side of the road, especially not an underage girl with issues. You and your friends are massive dicks for that. No way around it. You put her in potential life-threatening danger. Annoying or not, that is seriously f***ed up. I want you to be aware of that. That's the sort of mean girl behavior you only hear in entitled people story. If she was such a nuisance, you could have just asked her to leave, made it clear what the consequences were, told her to go, call someone to pick her up, anything at all, instead of just ditching her. Sorry, but I imagine that if we heard her side of the story, you and your friends would come out looking like monsters. You are the asshole. You are the asshole. Never leave someone stranded. I don't give a fuck what she was doing.
You are the asshole for leaving her stranded with absolutely no warning and also letting her come along to begin with, knowing how she could have made the trip a bummer. Should have just said she wasn't going and moved on.
I'm gonna go with Esh, because she was acting horrid, but you should have stood your ground and not let her come in the first place. That would have saved all of you a lot of trouble and none of this would have ever happened.
Esh. This really could have ended badly. What if her phone died, for example? Should have just stood your ground and not have taken her with you. Edit to add, so I just read your third edit. And I should have asked this earlier, but this really does beg the question now, why exactly are you friends with her?
Everyone sucks here. You shouldn't have taken her with you in the first place.
You are the asshole. You guys just left her. I am mentally ill, so I know I'm not easy to deal with. Few years ago, I thought of a trip for my BFF. She was going through a lot. The other person I mentioned the trip to, took it upon herself to let her know. I was annoyed how she made it seem it was her idea, basically she took over. Then I was called and I told them I could not go. I wanted them to enjoy the trip. Not cool to just leave her in a strange place.
You are the asshole. I almost went with ESH at first, but abandoning someone 100 miles away from home, even with $220, is rude AF. More importantly, you knew ahead of time she was insufferable and invited her anyway. People don't just grow new personalities because you ask them to. Of course she was a pain. You knew she would be ahead of time. It's your fault she was in the RV in the first place.
You guys were so young she couldn't even rent a car. Uber also has a time limit on your ride, so depending on how far you were she might not have even made it home. Honestly, I get it that she was so obnoxious, but first rule of traveling is that you don't leave anyone behind. Are you guys even friends anymore?
Not the asshole. She sounds like the worst, most annoying, attention-seeking child ever. You gave her a chance to not suck, she said she wouldn't but didn't keep her word. Sounds like you managed to end a terrible friendship and enjoy the rest of your vacation.
I keep coming back to the fact that you knew what to expect from them and brought them anyway, before deciding halfway through the trip you couldn't take it. The friend is obviously an asshole, but so are you. Even after sending her money, who just leaves someone somewhere unfamiliar? Now, I'm not saying you're not a somewhat justified asshole, but it's absolutely an asshole move.
You are the asshole. A golden rule in life is never abandon somebody in your group. You could have stopped at a hotel. You chose the cowardly way. Imagine if it was you. How scary that would be, especially at such a young age. Own the shitty behavior and learn from it.
As someone who has mental illness treated, it's your responsibility to know when something will be too much for you and remove yourself from the situation if it becomes a problem. Your friend's an asshole for choosing to go knowing she might not be able to handle it and not making arrangements to get back when it became an issue. However, you and the rest of your friends are the asshole for abandoning her without making sure she was okay. I can't imagine the kind of breakdown I would have if I just got left far from home even if I was given money. You should have told her you weren't taking her anymore and made sure she had a way home before you left her.
All these not the asshole posts are sickening. How TF is abandoning and blocking a friend hundreds of miles away from home with nowhere to go and no idea where she is not an asshole. OMG, he gave her money to get home though, who fucking cares? Uber for 200 miles is $200+. I'm sure she had to spend some of her own money. There were a bunch of other options to figure out what to do so they could all have fun and he picked the bottom of the barrel. All you saying he's not an asshole really need to take a look at yourself. It's disgusting how little empathy you have for people. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry you're the asshole big time in my opinion you couldn't find the heart to not include her on the trip in the first place but you did however feel okay enough to ditch her without warning in the middle of nowhere not thinking about the fact that she could have been killed, raped or kidnapped. You are the asshole. This sounds like a stupid teen horror show where she comes back to haunt you all.
While she was annoying and didn't hold her end of the bargain. You could have told her you were dropping her off. You all basically abandoned her without her charger and her things. After third edit, yeah, I'm more toward not the asshole. She threatened to break what wasn't hers if they sent her back. No one wants to deal with an individual like that.
You should have told her you were leaving her behind because of her behavior, and stuck to it. Taking off unexpectedly is asshole thing to do, even if you warned her of her behavior. Did you even leave her stuff for her or just drive off with her belongings?
You are the asshole. Dumping people on the road trumps pretty much any personality flaw they might have. Just dump this person you obviously dislike. You knew what would happen and took her anyway. Really not down with leaving someone by themselves either. Yeah, it was a place with other buildings and people but you can never be too careful. What if something had happened to her?
You are the asshole. You knowingly went on a trip with a crazy person. You made your crazy bed but couldn't lie in it, so you just ditched her.
Not the asshole. Don't be a dick to people if you don't want to get ditched at gas stations.
Yes, you are the asshole. What sort of friend does this? At least have the decency to tell her you want her to leave the trip rather than ditching her.
YTA. You could have waited until that night and left her at a hotel. You didn't have to just leave her. You don't know what could have happened. That's so messed up. You clearly weren't actually friends, otherwise you would have never done that. Don't blame it on being 17 either. Doesn't mean you're excused from being horrible.
Not the asshole. She was warned she had to behave and didn't even try to. You would have been the asshole if you dumped her at the side of the road but you left her as a safe spot and made sure she could afford a ride back. Some people are saying you should have warned before dumping her but I disagree. Firstly because you warned her before the trip started and she didn't listen, and secondly because if she knew she was about to be dumped she'd probably have made a huge scene or simply refused to get out of the car. You are the asshole. You knew what you were getting into. Seems like on some level you wanted the drama.
You are the asshole buddy for 3 reasons. 1. You ditched someone, a woman, hundreds of miles from home and left her alone, compromising her safety. 2. You did not deal with the situation head on, i.e., we are leaving you here at this motel gas station because we cannot deal with your shit anymore. 3. You blocked her and made no mention of making sure her parents or other relatives knew what you were doing or set up any backup plan beyond giving her $220. I get it. She was a horrible person, but this is not how you deal with these situations. You're supposed to face them head on and be decisive, not cowardly.
I think you are the asshole for how you handled the situation. It would have been better if you stopped at the gas station or a restaurant, explained that she would not be continuing on the trip with you and that you would give her enough money to get home, then waited with her for an Uber, come up with a plan. Leaving someone no matter how shitty they are is never okay.
It's never okay to leave someone stranded. At least put her on a bus. That being said, if she wants friends she needs to get help. No one wants to put up with that shit when she isn't even trying.
Everyone saying AITA is wrong. You ditched her, alone, hundreds of miles from home. Everyone sucks here, but you guys suck way more than she does. Being irritating is not enough cause to abandon her literally hundreds of miles from home. With friends like you.
You are the asshole, 2 days in and a few hundred miles from home? You made a bad call by bringing her, but that was your call. The better move would have been to turn the RV around, dropped her off at home, and then continued on with your trip. At a few hundred miles you would have lost a day tops with this move.
Welcome to Am I the Asshole? Please view our voting guide here, and remember to use only one judgment in your comment. Help keep the sub engaging. Hashtag Dawn. Downvote assholes. Do upvote interesting posts. Click here for our rules, and click here for our FAQ. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit message compose to =Amy the asshole if you have any questions or concerns.
You are the asshole. Parting ways with her unilaterally is fine in the circumstances, but doing it without telling her is brutal. Did you just drive off with all her luggage? Did you even make sure first that she had her phone with her as opposed to having left it in the car? You are the asshole. You know your friend is mentally ill. Your friend cannot promise to not be mentally ill, no matter what she says. You knew what you were getting into.
I am leaning towards her for acting the way she did and the 3 of you for tolerating that behavior without setting boundaries. You should have said something before just ditching her. You don't know if that was a safe situation for her or not, and you really didn't think about the consequences of your actions.
That outcome was extremely predictable. I know she sucked on that trip, but she seriously should not have been there in the first place. The fact that you didn't even communicate that you were leaving without her and instead just ghosted was a severely shitty thing to do, and the money is really only a band-aid on top of that. You've got to take a bit of responsibility for both her being there in the first place and the fact that you abandoned her in an unfamiliar location that I'm certain you didn't know was safe or not.
I think mental illness or disability is a moot point here. Whether they are real or not, it is not okay to abandon someone in an unfamiliar place. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Accepted, she was being a pain in the but abandoning her is a humongous overreaction and highly irresponsible. Imagine coming out of the bathroom and searching for your friends and panicking when you can't find them and then realizing they fucking ditched you. God. It's so horrible.